Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. China says Indian troops crossed the line of actual control and fired warning shots in the eastern Ladakh region. A spokesman for the People's Liberation Army's Western Command said Indian actions are a provocation that will escalate tensions. The two countries have been in a standoff in the Himalayan border region since June the 16th. In Doha, U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and Taliban chief negotiator Abdul Hakim Haqqani have discussed the speedy completion of the prisoner release process and the start of the intra-Afghan negotiations. The meeting comes on the heels of negotiations set to begin after the release of last half-dozen Taliban prisoners. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow is ready to help ease rising tensions in the eastern Mediterranean. Speaking after talks with his Cypriot counterpart in Nicosia, Lavrov rejected any actions that could lead to further escalation. Turkey and Greece are at odds over rights to energy exploration in the Mediterranean Sea. Ireland says Britain's trade talks with the European Union will be considered null and void if it fails to fully implement the Brexit deal. In an interview, Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin said the agreement is an international treaty and he expects Britain to implement what was agreed. Earlier, the EU warned Britain that there would be no trade deal after reports that London might undercut the Brexit deal signed in January. Russia says the first batch of the locally developed COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik 5 has been released into the public circulation. Russia is the third worst hit country by the coronavirus after the US and India. India has reported the highest daily toll of 1,133 deaths in the world today, with nearly 4.3 million cases. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 5 people have died overnight, raising the toll to 6,350, with over 299,000 infections. The novel coronavirus has claimed over 892,000 lives and infected over 27.3 million globally. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. China says Indian troops crossed the line of actual control and fired warning shots in the eastern Ladakh region. A spokesman for the People's Liberation Army's Western Command said India's actions are a provocation that will escalate tensions. The spokesman said Indian troops crossed the disputed western Himalayan border at the strategic outpost of Pangong Tso. He urged New Delhi to withdraw its troops, saying Indian troops' movement was in violation of an earlier bilateral agreement. The recent episode of the cross-border escalation comes after a meeting between Chinese and Indian defense ministers in Moscow on Friday. The two countries have been in a standoff in the Himalayan border region since June the 16th. The crisis peaked when 20 Indian soldiers were killed on June the 15th in the disputed Aksai Chin region administered by China. In Doha, U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad has held a meeting with the head of the new Taliban team to discuss issues related to the Afghan peace process. The Taliban said the meeting focused on the speedy completion of the prisoner release process and the start of the intra-Afghan talks. They said Qatar's Deputy Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdurrahman Al Thani also attended the meeting. The negotiations between the Taliban and a team representing the Afghan government are expected to begin after the release of the last half-dozen Taliban prisoners. The peace talks will lead to the withdrawal of the foreign troops from Afghanistan and end almost 2 decades of war. Now, Kabul says the Taliban have taken 10 people hostage after attacking a military checkpost in Afghanistan's northeastern Panjshir province. The head of Panjshir's provincial council said the hostages are all civilians and being kept in a local mosque. However, Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid claimed all those captured are soldiers. He said the Taliban fighters have detained 3 soldiers. Mujahid said the clearance operation is still going on in HUDDLE area. India has reported the highest daily coronavirus deaths in the world with 1,133 fatalities, while over 75,000 tested positive for the virus. India's COVID-19 death count has surged to nearly 73,000 with almost 4.3 million cases. The novel coronavirus has claimed over 893,000 lives and infected over 27.2 million globally. More in this report.
Coronavirus continues to wreak havoc in India. According to the World Health Organization, India has been reporting the highest number of daily COVID-19 cases in the world for nearly a month. The novel coronavirus is also threatening a full-blown second wave in the UK and France. Britain has reported its highest number of daily cases since May. Spain has become the first Western European country to report a total cases of over 500,000. The WHO has said the world needs to be ready for the next pandemic as it called on countries to invest in public health.
This will not be the last pandemic. History teaches us that outbreaks and pandemics are a fact of life. But when the next pandemic comes, the world must be ready, more ready than it was this time.
In the Americas, Argentina's death toll has crossed 10,000 as the South American nation fights to bring the cases under control. A survey has shown 5% of Brazilians will not take a COVID-19 vaccine under any circumstance, and a further 20% indicated they might not take it. While US President Donald Trump said there is a surprise coming up very soon, referring to the coronavirus vaccine.
So, contrary to all of the lies, the vaccine, that they're politicalized, they'll say anything, and it's so dangerous for our country what they say. But the vaccine will be very safe and very effective, and it'll be delivered very soon. You could have a very big surprise coming up. I'm sure you'll be very happy, but the people will be happy. The people of the world will be happy.
In Asia, mainland China has reported no domestic cases for the 23rd day straight, while South Korea has reported a further decline in daily cases as the number remained below 200 for the 6th consecutive day.
In Pakistan, 5 more people have died from the new coronavirus, while 330 more tested positive in the last 24 hours. The health ministry said the death toll in the country is at 6,350. The ministry said over 286,000 patients have recovered so far, declining the number of active cases to 6,726. The ministry said the country-wide caseload is over 299,000. Sindh remains the most affected province with over 130,000 infections, while Punjab has reported more than 97,000 cases so far. In Pakistan, the death toll from a rock slide at a marble quarry in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has risen to 19. Between 40 and 50 people were at the site at the time of the collapse, which occurred on Monday evening. An operation to rescue those trapped underneath the rubble is currently underway. Police said a landslide caused the mine to cave in. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi will visit Moscow tomorrow to attend a meeting of the Council of Foreign Ministers of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. According to Pakistan's Foreign Office, the invitation was extended by Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who would also chair the meeting. Qureshi will also have bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the moot. The HUDDLE will consider more than 20 documents for subsequent adoption in the SCO Council of Heads of State. It will also adopt a joint communique reflecting member states' unified stance on important regional and international issues. Since becoming a member in 2017, Pakistan has been actively contributing to working towards achieving SCO's multi-sectoral agenda. Besides Pakistan, China, Russia, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan are the members of the organization. Its major objectives include strengthening regional peace, security and stability. Ireland says Britain's trade talks with the European Union will be considered null and void if it fails to fully implement the Brexit deal. In an interview, Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin said the agreement is an international treaty and he expects Britain to implement what was agreed. The deal includes special arrangements to avoid a hard border between Ireland and British-ruled Northern Ireland. Earlier, the EU warned Britain that there would be no trade deal after reports that London might undercut the Brexit deal signed in January. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow is ready to help ease rising tensions in the eastern Mediterranean. Speaking after the talks with his Cypriot counterpart in Nicosia, Lavrov rejected any actions that could lead to further escalation. Lavrov's visit comes a month after Cyprus president asked Russian President Vladimir Putin to help ease the situation. But speaking during a meeting with Cypriot President, Lavrov expressed concern over what he said was US attempts to stir up the conflict instead of peaceful solutions in the eastern Mediterranean. Lavrov was alluding to Washington's decision to partially lift an arms embargo on Cyprus that was designed to prevent an arms race. Greece and Turkey have faced off against each other in recent weeks as Turkish survey vessels and drill ships continue to prospect for gas in waters where Greece and Cyprus claim exclusive economic rights. US President Donald Trump has said he would support Germany pulling out of Nord Stream 2 with Russia, but claimed its energy sector was too weak to do so. At a press conference in Washington, Trump said he has long advised Germany to reduce its over-dependency on Russian energy. President Trump said NATO exists to protect Europe from Russia. But he said Germany paid billions of dollars to the country at a time when its annual dues to the alliance are still pending. The Nord Stream pipeline brings Russian natural gas to Germany and other parts of Europe. Calls to withdraw from the project gain new momentum after Russian critic Alexei Navalny's alleged poisoning. The UN has called on Russia to conduct or cooperate in a full independent investigation into Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny's suspected poisoning. In a statement, a UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, said proper legal processes haven't been carried out in previous such incidents. It said poisonings and other targeted assassinations of Russian citizens over the past 2 decades was profoundly disturbing. Earlier, doctors at a German hospital said Alexei Navalny is out of an induced coma. In a statement, Berlin's Sheriff Hospital said Navalny's condition is improving, but it is too early to assess the long-term impact of the poisoning. Iran has begun to build a hall near its Nantes nuclear site for the production of advanced uranium enrichment centrifuges. Iran's nuclear chief Ali Akbar Salehi said the hall is meant to replace a compound at the facility which was damaged by the fire in July. Iran said at the time when the fire was the result of the sabotage and caused significant damage that could slow down the development of advanced centrifuges. He said the new hall would be more comprehensive in all the dimensions in the heart of the mountains near Nantes. Yemen's rebel group Houthis say they have carried out an attack against multiple targets in Saudi Arabia. The armed group's spokesperson, General Yahya Sari, said the latest operation hit Saudi Arabia's Abha International Airport. He said the Air Force carried out wide-scale attacks with drones, hitting several sensitive and military targets. The Arab coalition fighting in Yemen has not commented on the claim yet. Yemen faces the world's worst humanitarian crisis as the unrest and war in the country has entered its 5th year. In Jerusalem, the Israeli army has arrested 50 Palestinians in overnight raids in the occupied West Bank. A spokeswoman for the Palestinian prisoners said the raids targeted Hebron province. She said 2 women are among those arrested by the Israeli forces. She said leading Hamas members are also among those arrested. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. China has launched an initiative to establish global standards on data security. At the announcement, China's State Councillor Wang Yi said Beijing intends to promote multilateralism amid bullying by some countries. Wang said a new set of global data security rules should reflect and respect the wishes and the interests of all countries. He says some countries want to pursue unilateralism as they hunt and bully leading companies under the pretext of security. The program urges technology firms to prevent illegal data collection and calls to protect jurisdiction and data management rights of all countries. Beijing's initiative comes a month after the US launched its campaign Untrusted Chinese Apps under a program called the Clean Network. Japan's ruling party has kicked off the race to pick Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's successor ahead of the leadership vote on the 14th of September. Premier Abe's powerful right-hand man Yoshide Suga is commanding an all but insurmountable lead. In a speech, Suga said Japan cannot afford a political vacuum and added that he will continue with Abe's policies. Last month, Japan's longest-serving Prime Minister Abe stepped down over health reasons. To honor Pakistan Navy heroes of 1965 war against India, the nation is celebrating Navy Day today. This commemorates the heroic achievements of Pakistan's naval forces during the war. In his message, Pakistan's Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Zafar Mahmood Abbasi, said the country's Navy is fully capable and vigilantly guarding its maritime boundaries and interests. He said the Navy is recognized as a potent force in the region and a key partner in the International Navy's collaborative maritime security. Abbasi said Pakistan reiterates solidarity with Kashmiris and denounces blatant annexation of Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. On its National Day, Pakistan Navy has released a special docufilm, SURKHRU. It features the story of Pakistan Navy's successful detection of Indian submarine and deterring it from entering into Pakistani waters on the 4th of March 2019. SURKHRU demonstrates the rundown of real-time action and sequences of the incident played by the national heroes. Let's have a look at this promo.
अटैक 14 फरवरी
और यहाँ भी भारत को मुंह की खानी पड़ी है.
Pakistani Navy claimed it detected the Indian submarine.
I can also see the submarine on tactical mission system. It's definitely an Indian submarine.
Prepare for mat run. Prepare for mat run.
Captain of the aircraft, ready to fire the weapon now. I'm ready with the weapon. We can hit that submarine now.
ये खेल हमें बड़ा अच्छा आता है और किसी और को खेलना हो तो पहले सीख के आए.
Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte says it is time for Lebanon to rebuild trust between the people and its institutions. He said this during a visit to Beirut a week after a trip by French President Emmanuel Macron. After talks with Lebanese President Michel Aoun, Conte said his country will support Lebanon's economic and social growth. He said there is a great suffering in the country and it can be overcome with a strong political pact. He urged Lebanon to form the cabinet and start the reforms. The international community has warned it would not provide financial assistance to Lebanon unless it implements reforms. The European Union has voiced concern and regret of Serbia's commitment to move its embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Speaking to media in Brussels, EU spokesman Peter Stano said any steps that call into questioning the bloc's common position on Jerusalem are a matter of serious concern. The move has cast a shadow over the resumption of Serbia-Kosovo talks. President Alexander Vučić of Serbia and Kosovo Prime Minister Abdullah Hoti are to meet in Brussels for the second round of EU broker talks. The meeting follows a high-profile summit at the White House where Vučić and Hoti agreed to improve economic relations. In Serbia's case, Belgrade committed to moving its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Venezuela's opposition coalition has announced a unitary pact calling for free elections while others boycott the polls. 4 main opposition parties, along with 33 smaller entities, called for increased international pressure on President Nicolas Maduro. The opposition coalition says it will not take part in the presidential and legislative elections over possible rigging. But a faction led by the two-time presidential candidate Enrique Capriles has opened talks with the government to seek assurances. Meanwhile, opposition leader Juan Guaido said engaging in a fraudulent election will enable Maduro's dictatorship.
We ratify our rejection of the fraud elections that has been called on December 6 by the dictatorship. We will mobilize for a national and international campaign for free presidential and parliamentary elections. Also, we will build a campaign for a Venezuela that is against fraud.
A Bolivian court has disqualified exiled former President Evo Morales from running for the country's Senate. The court said Morales does not meet the residence requirements to be a Senate candidate. A government lawyer said the rejection of the former president's legal appeal was a win for Bolivia's constitution and its people. The court's decision upholds the previous ban on Morales' candidacy by Bolivia's electoral tribunal in February.
Those who have been deemed ineligible in the election believe it is not befitting of their interests. The Supreme Electoral Tribunal analyzes each candidate's case to determine which candidates fulfill the requirements and which don't.
Belarusian protest leader Maria Kolesnikova has been detained while trying to cross the border into Ukraine. Belarusian state media said that 2 of her allies managed to leave the country. Ukrainian border officials confirmed that Kolesnikova arrived at the frontier but did not cross into Ukraine. Yesterday, masked men had detained Kolesnikova in central Minsk and driven her off in a van. She was one of the 3 women who joined forces to challenge incumbent Alexander Lukashenko in August's election. Meanwhile, the EU demanded Belarus to release all detained on political grounds before and after the disputed presidential election. In South Korea, thousands of trainee doctors have ended their 18-day strike over a medical reform plan amid the resurging coronavirus cases in the country. The health officials say interns and residents have returned to work, but the junior doctors will have to take tests for COVID-19 before resuming service. The authorities say trainees who skipped a licensing exam in protest will not be allowed to retake it. Earlier, the doctors' union said they will return to work, but warned of tougher action if the government did not support students. Mexico City's ancient lake Texcoco has re-emerged and taken over the base of a control tower at an abandoned construction site of an airport. Officials have decided to let the swamp grow into a park. More in this report.
Bright green stalks of weeds are sprouting from the grounds where planes were supposed to take off at a new Mexico City airport. Officials are letting nature take over in their bid to transform the marshy swath of an ancient lake into a giant park. Mexico's former president commissioned a British architect to build a futuristic international airport at a cost of some $13 billion. Upon taking office in 2018, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador axed the project after arguing it will be costly to prevent sinking on the waterlogged soil.
El terreno donde se estaba construyendo.
Look at where they were building the Texcoco airport. It was fortunate we called it off. How much was it going to cost us to continue pumping water out of the area? They chose the worst place.
The abandoned construction zone is now part of a project to conserve 12,200 hectares of marsh. Birds glided in a pond beneath columns of crisscrossing steel bars that were meant to become a terminal, greeting some 70 million passengers a year. The steel will be sold as scrap now. About half of that area is slated for public use, including sports and event space, more than twice the size of New York Central Park.
We were thinking it could be inaugurated as a park at the beginning of next year. That's a reality, and it will be able to coexist with other type of activities, to open areas which could serve to walk around in for bird watching, as you can see here.
Officials point to recent flooding as proof that maintenance would have been difficult and say less than 20% of construction was completed. They paid some $603 million to cancel more than 600 contracts.
More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz and Russian President Vladimir Putin have emphasized the importance of bilateral trade relations in a telephonic conversation. The Saudi state media said King Salman expressed satisfaction over Russia's role in the stabilization of the global oil market under the OPEC Plus deal. Meanwhile, in a statement, the Kremlin said Putin highlighted the fruitful cooperation with Saudi Arabia in the field of energy. It said the two leaders also discussed preparations for the upcoming meeting of G20 heads of states and governments under the Saudi presidency. The Kremlin said King Salman and Putin paid particular attention to the prospects of joint production of the Russian vaccine to prevent further infection. American global credit rating agency Fitch Ratings has forecast India's gross domestic product to hit minus 10.5%. Fitch revised its earlier estimate of minus 5% for the current financial year 2021. Fitch revised forecast comes a few days after New Delhi said its GDP shrank by a massive 23.9% year-on-year. The economic catastrophe had an impact across the board as private consumption fell nearly 27%, while investment nosedived by 47%. India's National Statistical Organization data shows the country is on course for its first full-year contraction since 1980. The GDP drop has been attributed to a stringent but mismanaged lockdown that resulted in nearly 20 million salaried people losing their jobs. Wall Street stocks have plunged as investors sold off shares of Tesla and other tech heavyweights amid simmering US-China tensions. Concerns over a rocky economic rebound also weighed on the consumer sentiment. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is trading lower by about 1.5%. The Nasdaq Composite Index is trading down by over 1%, while the S&P 500 has shed nearly 2%. Meanwhile, oil prices tumbled to their lowest level since June amid growing demand concerns as pandemic continues to spread. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For further updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.